the black man was the first man, and the black man will be the last man. So take a stand, black man,
I'm
take
Sister
a
JJ,
stand. I
the
give praise to
executive
the black
producer of this
man,
Docu Series.
the black man was the first man, and the black man will be the last man. So take a stand, black man, take a stand. I give praise, much praise to the black man, because it's about time that the black man take a stand. So give it up for the black man, and like Malcolm X, we gonna stand for the black man. So give it up right now.
So I asked some black men and black women whether or not black men vote. And if black men do not vote, why not? And if they do vote, why do they feel as though society is saying that they don't vote? And how powerful do they feel their votes are? And what are they doing to encourage other black men to vote? So no matter how you may feel about whether or not a black man votes, there's one thing that I'm asking you black men after looking at this docuseries, and that is vote.
Ain't no so sweet, I give praise to the black man because it's unique. I give praise to the black man because the black man was the first man, and the black man will be the last man. So take a stand, black man, take a stand. Hustler by nature, provider by law. The black man is the one that goes real far. Black and beautiful, it never amazed me. Strong black men just drive me crazy. Praise to the black man, cause the black man was the first man, and the black man will be the last man. So take a stand, black man, take a stand.
Hi, I'm Sister JJ, the executive producer of this docu-series, #Black Men Vote. This docu-series focuses on black men and their relevancy to voting. All too many times, we're hearing that black men don't vote, or that their votes are steady declining. I have to wonder if that's actually true. So I asked some black men and black women whether or not black men vote. And if black men do not vote, why not? And if they do vote, why do they feel as though society is saying that they don't vote? And how powerful do they feel their votes are? And what are they doing to encourage other black men to vote? So no matter how you may feel about whether or not a black man vote, there's one thing that I'm asking you black men after looking at this docuseries, and that is vote. #Black Men Vote. So thank you, Corel, for taking the time to talk with me about your views on black men voting.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, again, my name is Corel Driscoll. I'm a married man with 4 kids. I've been married for about 13 years, going on 14, which is a great achievement for me as an individual, considering how I started out. I've served in the United States Navy, traveled the world. While I was in the Navy, I was what they call a shipboard electrician. I focused on working on elevators and conveyors because I was on a supply ship. And I, of course, worked on forklifts and some of those types of things, which was a great experience. It got me outside of my hometown, which is Macon, Georgia. That's where I was raised. But I was born in Washington, D.C. And so getting out of the country was a good fit for me as an individual. Growing up, lots of fighting, got in lots of trouble, which, contributes to the marginalizing of black men, and also adds to the negativity around voting. I've been in the information technology arena for over 20 years. I graduated from Georgia State University with a bachelor's in urban policy studies with emphasis on local government management. And once I graduated in 2004, I took that policy studies degree and applied it to helping to establish policies that govern the use of using technology, which made me pretty unique, and I have a niche. Okay. Established my own business, doing training, technology contracts, etc. And I didn't tell my age is 49, and I retired in May of this year.
Congratulations.
You know, yeah, I don't know. I don't like sitting around. Too much court TV influencing. But it's been a wonderful ride, right? I think I can honestly say that my children saved me. As soon as my first child was born, I took life a little bit more seriously. I didn't participate in womanizing because my firstborn was a girl. So you can imagine that. That was my previous marriage at that time. So even when the divorce started, I didn't make it a practice of having women around my daughter because I didn't want her to think it was okay. So when I met my second wife, 2 existing kids, took on responsibilities there. Again, kids saved me. They just kept me serious. I always wanted them to have the life that I didn't have, or a better life. Didn't want them growing up in a single family or single parent home. So I always made sure I took care of my kid with my ex-wife and my kids that were under my domain full time. And kids tend to make a boy or a young man grow up if they have their head on right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Fulfilling life you have. You are what I would call an example of an African American man living in America.
Right.
Contrary to what society may say about black men.
Right. Now, and I've been arrested a number of times
Oh, wow.
as a youth.
Okay.
Right, because of the fighting, even going into my 20s, even while I was divorcing. I didn't know there were certain rules on the book. It was 9/11. A lot of us lost jobs. I was one of those that lost a job. And at that time, my child support was $1,500 a month. But I could only pay fragments at a time. Well, most black men don't realize that if they don't pay their child support, they lose their civil liberties, which is what happened to me. And I think I was in jail for about 2 weeks over that until we got that straightened out. So I was in criminal court as well as civil court for my divorce. And those arrests do count against you as a black man. And so I always fought to stay out of the system. I didn't want no probation. I didn't want any arrests. But again, being a young black man, you get into some trouble. I think the worst trouble I've gotten into was carrying a concealed weapon without a license. That was earlier on. And then I got a concealed license. I had an argument with a guy. He went and took out a warrant on his own because the investigators said it was everybody misbehaving badly. I didn't pull my gun on anybody, but making that claim put me in the system to go through trial. They found me innocent of pointing the weapon, but found me guilty of simple assault. Right? Simple assault was added on as an additional charge based on pointing the weapon. So I couldn't understand why they would convict me of a simple assault when I was found innocent of the court. And I was could have served 2 years in jail. I only had to stay in there one night, maybe 2 nights, and got back on with my life. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because of the type of work I do. Generally, you have to go and have a criminal background check. It wasn't a felony, it was a misdemeanor. And again, keep in mind, I was found innocent of one, found guilty of the other. I can't get the innocent off my record because the guilty is tied to it. And so when it comes to getting contracts or getting full-time employment, that would count against me. And so that's one of the core reasons why most black men do not vote, because they have been criminalized. And when they're criminalized, especially if it's a felony, they don't have the right to vote.
Right.
And although we make up a smaller portion of the population compared to our counterparts, like white men, we are more criminalized than the white men in the system. And of course, they get breaks when it's time for employment. So I ran into those challenges with employment. Luckily, I had established my own business, and I'm able to go out and create my own opportunity.
You didn't let it stop you?
No, I couldn't. I had kids to take care of. You know, and my youngest son, who is CJ, he's named after me. You know, I work with him constantly on controlling his emotions, because that's what primarily get black men in trouble. Lack of control of those emotions. And now put on top of that, that there are some people who don't believe in voting, which I don't support. They don't want to vote because they believe that their voice is not heard. Well, when you think about all of the people who died for that right, it's not right for them to reject voting. But again, mass incarceration, racial biases are two of the primary reasons why you see a low voter turnout for black men compared to black women, right? More of us are in jail, less of black women are in jail. But they do exercise their voice. They make a difference. But black men can make that same difference if they just get up and go vote.
And how do you feel about voting?
I feel like voting matters. I feel like if you don't believe in something or support a system that is for your best, then what else is there to do? Either vote and change the system or make a system.
My name is Daryl.
How old are you?
I'm 15 years old.
Okay, so you're too young to vote now, but how do you feel about voting?
I feel like I'm gonna vote when I'm not too informed on what's going on right now, but when I get older, I'll educate myself more into politics. But I don't really know that much about what's going on in the world today.
So do you talk to your children, especially your son, about voting?
Yes, we've always talked to all of our kids about voting. If my kids don't vote, I get turned off, I get mad at them, because that's not the way they were raised.
Do you come from a household of people that do vote?
Oh yes, definitely. Everybody in my family votes every time that they get the chance to. I think usually they pick me up from school early just so they get to vote as early as possible.
I am a registered voter, and I vote for every presidential election and sometimes the primaries.
I am a registered voter, but I can no longer vote because I am a felon. I've only voted one time ever. It was I voted for Obama's first term.
Being that I grew up with my mom, she's a state rep, so she ran for Secretary of State, Mayor, City Council. Now that she's a state rep, I grew up around voting. I grew up around black men voting. Some black men, they do vote. Some black men don't vote. And then some black men just like, I'll vote this time, maybe next time, a little here, now and there. So it is important, but me being a millennial, I do see why other black men will be like, I don't want to vote because my vote doesn't matter. Or it will see like, I'll vote, but I'm gonna put down something stupid. Like with the Trump election, how people put Harambe and stuff like that. It's like some black men treat it as a joke while others treat it as like something serious.
I like how you laid out your life and segued it into how it contributed to black men lack of participation in voting. And it sounds like to me that there is a systematic, for lack of better words, what's the word I want to use? I'm lost for thoughts.
Elimination of us voting.
Correct.
Yep.
So some subliminal message to us. That's the word I want to use. So
Okay.
a subliminal message to black men that because of your incarceration, because you're not allowed to vote,
Right.
But you experienced this, but yet you are a registered voter, correct?
Yes. I'm
So what did
registered
you
to vote.
do to? Because I'm assuming that you lost your right to vote at one time, or
No,
did you
well,
never lose your right?
I wasn't the one of those who lost the right to vote.
Okay.
Because I never had a felony.
Okay.
But you know, any black man that you see that has a felony conviction, they're marginalized in society. So although we have organizations or companies that believe in giving second chances, those second chances are not afforded to black men. They're afforded to white men. So
what about the states such as Virginia, where the governor is giving rights, automatically restoring rights to vote to any individual that does not have a forceful,
something like a murder or
yeah,
burglaries,
yeah,
those are major
felonies. Right.
felonies.
But if it's not, if it's, I guess, a drug, cocaine, or something of that nature, their rights are restored. So in Virginia, that is the governor's name has slipped my mind, but he's been doing that for a few years. So what are your views on those states that are restoring the right to vote for African American men, and anyone in general, but we're speaking about African American men that don't have a violent crime? That's the word. So if it's not a violent crime, then he will restore your rights to vote. But then they're not voting. They have their rights restored, yet they don't vote. So let's talk about that particular margin of men that do have the rights to vote or had their rights restored, but yet they're not utilizing their rights. What are your views?
Can I answer your question about the Virginia governor? I think that's a step in the right direction. I see that there's quite a bit of conversations about that, but like you said, they're not exercising the right to vote. Even people who don't have any type of connection to the criminal system, they're not voting, or at least not voting consistently. That is very disappointing and damaging to the black communities.
If African American male gets sent to prison, he loses his rights, and when he comes out, he was not, especially if he's a felon, when he comes out, he doesn't have the right to vote. So all those are just hindering us from going to vote, and it's really annoying because it's just like we have a voice too, but yet no one wants to hear it.
Every time there's a voting poll, like for example, the local polls in Gwinnett County, the sheriffs, the mayors, these even chairmen of schools and boards, we pay attention to all of it. I get updates to my phone constantly. Got to, and we're gonna talk about it right then and there.
Voting is definitely important to me. I think everyone should use their constitutional right to voice their opinion on who should be governing America. And if you don't vote, you really don't have a say in how things are going in the government. So, yeah.
I'll speak as a black man. We're not doing our part. We got to take the time to get out and vote. Lines are not as long. They have a long early voting time frames. I mean, you'll see most of these men that are going to the club line and stand there for two hours just to get into the club, or go to a game. Apply that same passion to voting. We can't get anything done without a collective voice. Individual voices, cool, but they're not impactful.
Why do you think that we have that margin of African American men that feel as though that their vote does not count?
I think it's a taught behavior by our parents or people of influence.
Interesting.
You know, whether our vote win or not, it does count. And if it didn't matter, why would you see these various states trying to eliminate people from the voting list? They're nervous because the demographics of America are changing. That's a threat to the majority. That's why they have to seize control in the courts, and changing the voting borders. They want to maintain that control because there's a lot of power in our voices. And so when you start concentrating and collecting those voices, then things will change.
I feel like my vote counts because I feel like, we populated. We're the trend. We can do anything we put our minds to. You know what I'm saying? We control all the momentum. And I say that, I say, melanated people. But I feel like my vote doesn't count in a way because I feel like they still do the 1/3 of a person type vote type of ordeal, to where it's like me, my brother, and my other brother vote, and that's just one. That counts as one. So it's like it's been suppressed for some time.
So how do you feel about the millennials that don't vote?
I say it's your choice. Like, I grew up in a house, go vote, go vote, go vote. Next Tuesday, we're getting ready to all go vote together as a group. So it's just stuff like that versus if I was to go by myself, I'll do it. But for other millennials, I'm just it's your choice. If you don't want to go vote, I'm not going to trash you for it. I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm not going to say you're wrong for it. If you don't want to vote, it's okay. But just know that when something go down, I'm going to joke around with you and see what happens when you don't vote. AKA Trump.
Do they talk about voting in your school?
Not really, not that much. Kids do mention often how oh, I can't wait to vote, things like that. But it's usually just brought up when they say, oh, I'm gonna drive soon. I'm gonna drive, well, I'm gonna vote, things like that.
So I have two questions. One, I want to chime in a little bit more on. You said that part of it is because of the learned behavior from the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that before I go to the next question.
Okay.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. You said that the parents play a part in the men, African American men, voting or not voting. Elaborate on that.
So what I mean by that, growing up, most of us seen our parents avoid voting, and we listen to their negative experiences about voting. I mean, when you think about the right to vote, right, before they tried to prevent us from voting by just flat out having a policy where we couldn't vote, we wasn't considered to be human beings, right? So think about that history around leading up to our parents. And then they started taxing us to vote. And then there was an intimidation movement, right? I know we talk a lot about the class system from Jim Crow and slavery. And now we have mass incarceration. They come up with great strategic plans to encourage us not to vote. Even now, if you listen to some of these polls that they put out, a lot of it is misleading, right? Because we don't know anything about the sample, what they're doing around these sample. TV influenced our parents. I think it's more of the TV that had that influence, and then the next generation was taught by the parents that voting wasn't of value for some of those parents. And even when I graduated from high school, I went into the Navy. I didn't register to vote until I got out of the Navy. I didn't register until I got out. But my travels in the Navy, meeting different people around the world, I learned that if you want anything done, you have to let your voice be heard. And I am a critical thinker. I'm an independent, so I'm not affiliated with the Democratic or Republican Party, right? So when I vote, it can be across the aisle, depending from the federal, state, and local level of government. And what most people need to pay attention to is really more of the local government. Local government has more control over your body. Mm-hmm. You get taxed, there's ordinances, and then of course, scaling that out, state law, federal government has less control of your body and less influence in the states?
Well, I'm a Christian, but I'm willing to vote for anyone. Like, just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I'm not gonna vote for someone that's Muslim or any other religion other than my own. I pretty much vote in what I think will better me and those around me, and also just what's in the best interest of America as a whole.
Okay, so you said that you feel as though voting is important, and you stated that you were raised in a household where voting was a way of life, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So is that the reason why you feel as though it's important? Was it instilled in you, obviously, or is there another reason why you feel as though voting is important?
I realize like voting is actually super important because there are things that we have to look into, like when they're looking at school districts and who we vote for, when we're looking at mayors, looking at laws, different law stuff that's about to happen. It's important because we just have to do our own research, and then we look at it like, oh, this does impact me. Because when I was younger, I was like, this doesn't affect me right now because I'm 13. Now that I'm 22, now that I'm 22, I'm realizing, this actually does affect me because I just bought a car. And now there's some laws that was just like, I think it's, I have to pay the taxes for an old car, the same taxes I pay on a new car. And I'm like, that's my whole entire check that I spent buying a car. So little stuff like that makes me realize, we do have to go vote because not everybody has our best interests at heart.
Good point.
So now that my little brother just turned 18, so every year, every time one of us turn old enough to vote, my mom will grab all of us and be like, okay, we're all going to go vote together.
So it's a family thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How does that make you feel? Is it like, oh, she's making us do it again? Or are you genuinely excited? Have you talked with your brother about it? How do you feel?
Sometimes, like when we first talked about it, like what you told me, I just got off work, so I'm just like, cool, I'm really tired, but that's a great idea. But then like talked about it today, I was like, okay, this actually is going to be a good idea because we're trying to plan it out, being that like everyone's schedule is all over the place and we're trying to put it together. Like I enjoy it, but sometimes I know being our schedules, we might not be able to do it as a family no more, so we have to do it solo sometimes, which is okay.
How did you feel when the family gathered together to accompany you for your first time voting?
Well, it was just me and my mom my first time. I thought it was cool because it was for, I think it was a state representative. When I first started to vote, either a state representative. Yes, it was a state representative because that's when she got elected. She got elected when I graduated. It was getting ready to graduate high school, and that was my first time voting because I remember I had to wear my lucky shirt. It was a black and white shirt, and I was cool that I voted in that shirt. And she won, and I was wearing that shirt when she won. So it's just like I voted in the shirt, I wanted it, and she wanted it. So it's just like, it's my lucky shirt. So I thought it was exciting.
All right. So do you vote on every level, or do you just vote in the presidential?
Every level, because all those are important. Because there is a mayoral race coming up Tuesday, which is extremely important because yes, the president has all the power. But you also got to think about the Senate, the House, and the mayors because they also make the laws in your city. And those are extremely important because if you look at it, especially here in Lithonia, there have been mayors where it's just like they all have done some dirt and now it's falling back on us.
What I want to talk about is your thoughts on the statistics and the analytics when it's being reported. Mm-hmm. They talk about the white community breakdown, the working white man, the working white woman, the LGBTQ community. They talk about the black community in reference to women. Mm-hmm. We only hear or we seldom hear about the black man's vote, but most of the time when we hear about the black man's vote, we are constantly hearing about the decrease in the African Americans' male vote. Mm-hmm. We don't hear about what part their vote actually played in any administration, whether small or big. And I find that very peculiar that We're speaking about everyone else's statistics of voting and how it affected the elections. Yet we never hear how the African American male vote affected the election.
Well,
What are
I'll
your
speak
thoughts?
to that. I think that they have been very successful with eliminating the strong black men in homes, right? Using the Jim Crow laws, using slavery, now mass incarceration. A lot of people don't realize that if you look at the unemployment rate as an example, we're double the unemployment rate for white men, when in actuality it should be tripled, because they're not counting the men, the black men that are incarcerated. Because with that number, it would actually increase. So in actuality, the unemployment rate for black men should be around 19% because of the high level of incarceration of black men.
So I'm hearing a lot about part of the reason why black men don't vote is because we have a high level of black men incarcerated. Yet we have white males that are incarcerated as well.
Right.
The percentage may not be as high as African American men. However, we still hear the reports of the white man's vote. Do you think that there's a subliminal message that's being sent out to the black man? If you don't report on the black man, then you don't exist.
Right. Not only that, you don't have an impact. And that also contributes to why they're not voting. There is TV, like you said, they put out these stats. We're spoken about less as compared to our black women. Like recently, they have been, just talking about black women are now the highest educated gender. Just totally eliminating any impact from the black men. And that's why reading is best for us versus watching TV. I think the low percentage of readers is also contributing to that. I don't fall for the okie doke, if I may, and many other black men don't, because we know that we would need to see more information to firmly believe it. Just think about the economy. The fact that we have a high number of black men in jail takes away from the economy because they're not working, right? If they were to count them into the average income for black men, it would be even lower. I have to say, I'm a man of faith. I have to thank God for my progress because, even in my fraternity, they taught us never to give up. We have a poem for that. You can't give up because there's a lot betting on us. Now, I also want to contribute to the low count of black men voting, to black women who have abandoned the black man. There are some black women who just really demean black men at any point that they can. I recently read an article about the Morehouse men. They're graduating a good percentage of men, training them for leadership. And then we have a couple of black women who really were turned off by that. Wow.
Interesting.
These single family, and I'm a very opinionated guy. A lot of these young black men that are in jail were raised in single family homes. If a young black man makes it as a basketball player, that black woman wants to be recognized and proud. Why can't they also take accountability for some of these black men that are incarcerated? And I think one of the major reasons why these young black men are incarcerated because some of these black mothers are treating them like a child. All the way up to 18, they go out, have one of these emotional moments, get arrested, and then serve their time.
Now you speak about emotions with the African American male quite frequently. And I find that intriguing that black men are emotional when we always hear that they're supposed to be this hard, stone man. No. So elaborate on that a little for me, please.
Well, I call them emotionally immature. They don't know how to maintain their emotion, like this domestic violence that we see. I grew up and I was emotionally challenged too. I'm 49 years old and I continue to work on those emotions because I don't want anyone else to have control over my body. It was a lack of control of those emotions why I got arrested those many times as a youth and as a man. We got to get some male representation in these kids' lives so that they can learn to be a man.
So you say because some African American males are incarcerated, then they're not allowed to vote. But then you have white males that are incarcerated as well. Yet the white working class male vote is talked about in statistics and analytics. So why do you think that the white male vote is talked about, but the black male vote isn't talked about?
Because they want to target, it's sad for like how I see it. They want to target more white males to go vote versus target more African American males to go vote, which isn't, once again, it isn't fair, it isn't right. When you look at marketing and stuff like that, those are the people that they go for because they know those are the people that will go vote, those are the people that they know that will go vote for them. Versus there are certain politicians that do go out to go look for the African American male. My mom, some politicians that I've worked for with their campaigns and helped out with, going out, getting voters, talking to them, stuff like that. It's just like, yo, we hear you. They might not hear you, but we do.
So do you think that it's harder for the politicians to encourage African American males to vote?
Yes, because a lot of us are lazy. I've talked to some people like, why don't you want to go vote? I don't have a way to get there. Take the bus. I don't have money for it. But they'll just sit at home, watch TV and stuff like that because they feel like they're more comfortable with that. It's like black men going out to vote is like telling a baby to walk as soon as it comes out the womb. They're not comfortable with it yet. They're not comfortable with it yet, and then when it's time, it's just they'll keep pushing it to the side, pushing it to the side, pushing it to the side. Then it's just.
So why do you think the mindset is like that?
How they were trained in an environment. Because when you look at people who are in the ghetto, the hood, stuff like that, it's like you see them, like you see how they raised up. Their parents didn't go vote. Their parents didn't go vote. But their grandparents went to go vote. But it died off. But if you look at somebody who was like at the high class level, with money and stuff like that, it's just those people, parents, they went to go vote. They would go vote. They took their people to go vote. It's like they were installed in their minds, this is what is important.
So do you think if your mother was not into politics and not a state representative, do you feel as though that you would be a millennial that vote and understand voting?
Yes. Because especially after these like reverse election, presidential I got to vote in was the Trump election. And seeing how idiotic some of the people in my generation are, they put Harambe or Hennessy and stuff like that, they made it a joke. Realize, okay, this is not a joke. This is like our future. So I will still be a millennial that will let you go vote.
Everyone's vote's the same.
Right.
Like, my vote doesn't mean any more than your vote, than someone on the street. Like, everyone's vote is the same. One vote is just, it weighs the same for everybody. So, in that aspect, like, we're all equal.
Okay, and then pretty sure I saw on CNN that there was a decline in black men voting recently, like in last presidential election, than there was during the one where Obama won.
So why do you think, personally, why do you feel, or why do you think that's so?
I'm not too sure, actually. I guess it would have something to do with how the politicians connect to connect to their voters.
I feel like there's not enough color in who we're voting for. So I feel like it's still discriminate. Even Obama talking about him dealing with this discrimination while being president. Like, a lot of things are still discriminate. That's what we're seeing. But I'd like to see more melanation, more people. Not, you know what I'm saying? I say melanation because the Black Queen created all people.
Black women have done a great job of teaching their young boys about how to treat a black woman, but they can't teach them how to be a man because they don't know. Just like I have girls, I can't teach them how to be a woman, but I can teach them how a man should treat them. So we got to get back to the basics. It's been torn up by these different class systems. Mass incarceration has turned out to be the best strategy for stripping men out of the home. That's the number one strategy. It's working.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
So, your thoughts on voting. Do black men vote overall?
Good black men who understand that their voice do make a difference do vote. But that percentage is not as high as we would like.
Do you feel as though it's an injustice to those men that are voting that are not being counted in the statistics and the analytics?
Yeah, I would have to say yes. Individualism, which has been promoted in our communities, is tearing us apart. Me, 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 me. That's all you hear. What we should be thinking about this collectively. There's proof that it works. Right? We used to have the Black Harlem, right? We used to run those numbers, which was generating a lot of money in the communities. They criminalized that. But what do we have today in Georgia and other states? The lottery. They're doing the same thing. They decriminalize it. The same thing with weed. You see many states decriminalizing the sale of weed. Blacks were known for selling weed. And it was a good economy.
Yeah, it was.
It was a good economy. So they criminalize it when we come up with these concepts like this, and then they turn around and legalize it because they want to earn some taxes off of it.
Okay. So, how do you feel about the trickery that's been the voting process have been accused of when it comes to African Americans voting and some of the system not operating as it should probably operate, such as the polls for voting polls not being working properly and the count not being proper and things of that nature, all of the things that people are saying happen to hinder them from voting. How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's the worst because I've had conversations with people that actually work with the polls. I've had friends who work with those people, and they even told us, like, yo, some of the polls got counted even before it was closed. And here in the cab, they're not letting us do Sunday voting and voting closes at 5, so I feel like it's not fair. So some of those stories are actually true, and it's sad that they're using that to hinder people.
I feel like it's been chaos about voting to kind of make it a stigma, make you feel some type of way about it, make you feel like it doesn't matter, make you laugh, make you joke. A celebrity's president, you know what I'm saying? It kind of makes it's a distraction. And I also feel like I said, it's to suppress people from voting. People that are actually trying to speak to the community. You know what I'm saying? People that are crying out, they're muting. You know what I mean? So I feel like voting matters. It has to matter.
What would be some of your ideal thoughts on how we can change the thought pattern of our African American men that do not vote but have the right to vote, but believe that their vote do not count?
Yeah, you know what? I've given considerable thought to that. I think Stacey Abrams is on the right path. She's putting forth a significant effort in inviting others to join her to pass on that type of influence. But, you know, some of them may not have transportation. You know, may have to do some ride shares, pick them up, or even use existing organizations like Greeks, right? I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I like what they stand for, and they start with our young boys in the Kappa League to influence them to be the best and be a part, and that would include voting. We're just going to have to take advantage of existing organizations to do it. And then, of course, I firmly believe that existing politicians that are in office, they have a level of influence. They can help to influence black men to get out and vote. We can't force them, but we can try to work to influence them.
Either voting matters, and we can create our own party that cares for us, or we're going to be the party. Create our own system, create our own government. Either this party needs to care for us, or, you know what I'm saying? There's the other option.
It is absolutely important for people of color to vote because just a few days ago I saw this graph and it was showing just the amount of people that are people of color, if they voted, how differently, like if all of them voted, how differently elections would turn out. So it definitely plays a part if everyone, all people vote.
So as a 15-year-old that is waiting for his time to vote, what would you have to say to everyone else that are able to vote?
Definitely vote. It can change an election. With the people who don't vote and the people who do, you might think by yourself that you won't change the outcome of an election, but think about how many other people have that same mindset. So that's why just you going to vote can have an effect on your friends, your family, your co-workers, and just the people around you.
So what do you have to say to the millennials out there that are not voting, especially the African American males? What would you say to them?
Please go vote, y'all. I can't stress this enough. I call myself a semi-activist. I'm not do it before, but I try to give words to encouragement. So please go vote. Please, because it's really important. We saw what happened we got Trump, and we see all the crazy stuff that's been going down. Everything was shut down for like, what, 24 days? This was crazy. And y'all, then everyone is slowly starting to realize, oh, this is actually important now. Yeah, we've been telling y'all this our whole lives. So, go vote, please.
So, to wrap it up, what would you have to say to those that are listening?
It's life or death. Voting is important, and we need to protect our kids. We should be strategically a part of public policy. We need to help write these bills. We need to vote for representatives that would push these bills. It's important. It's life or death.
So take a stand, black man, take a stand. Hell to the man, we give praise to black man. Hell to the man, we give praise to black man. Black man, black man. In the image of himself, God made black man. To Elijah and the X-Clan. Booker T, Carver, and you, black man. Black man, you must understand that the fate of our future lies in your hands. The fight, the struggle, the will to be free. You're the son of God, the man with the key. Free mind is what you must see. A free-minded man, he can never defeat. The power in your heart and the root from your soul makes all black men stand strong and bold. So for you, black men, you get much respect. Peace. Assalamu alaikum, yeah, it's like that. I give praise to the black man. The black man was the first man.